then. And this is the Hour of Empower on the live stream network. I'm so honored and happy to have Dave Snell with us again today. Dave's been a regular every other Wednesday. And because of Dave's background and kind of direction, we chose fitness today as the key word. And I know a lot of people are focused on fitness, especially going into the new year, because that's when all those fitness resolutions start to pop up. So like I say, chat's open. Love to hear what your thoughts and definition of fitness is. In the meantime, I'll turn it back to Dave. Dave can share a little bit about where he's at, what he's been doing, and more importantly, how the word fitness applies to Dave and his efforts. Dave?
Hey, Don. Yeah, it's good to be here again. As always, always a fun time and an easy hour to talk through things. I always enjoy it. You know, fitness for me, the journey for me really began coming up on 4 years ago when I got on a scale December 29th. Don't ask me why I remember dates. I just always have. And I saw a number on a scale that I said, hey, this is too much. I can't do this. And then I tied it to my mental health, which was in the toilet as well. I was physically and emotionally, mentally just broken, and got in touch with an old shipmate, an old boss, who said, "Hey, I've got this weight management program. We didn't want to call it a diet, but as as my weight went down, my energy levels came up, and I said, okay, well, if I can feel this good now, let's start doing things that I enjoyed as a teenager, as a young adult, that broken bodies just kind of got in the way. You know, I've had 2 neck surgeries and some back issues, and I started running again. And fitness for me just became a natural outgrowth to maintain that happiness level that was changing with the increased levels that I had. And I noticed, excuse me, I noticed the more I worked out, the less depressed I felt, the happier I was, the more engaged I was. The mental aspect was directly interlinked, and I couldn't have found a better way to improve my mental health. So I decided that I would finally get on this path of running the marathon that I had told myself in 1993, maybe 94. Must have been 93 that I was going to run. I was finally going to do this marathon thing in 2022. Or actually, I guess it's 21. I wanted to, but COVID, they didn't have it, because I always wanted to do the Marine Corps marathon. That's always been the one on my list. And I finally did it. You know, 2 years or a year and a half ago, a year ago, I guess it was October 22. Finally got to run it, and I did it again this year. And you see all my posts are really, or most of my posts are, hey, here's what I've done today to work out, to run, to go to the gym, to exercise and keep my body mentally fit. But the direct correlation between mind and body fitness is indisputable nowadays. And it's very important that we maintain physical, whether that be dietary or exercise or both, and really both, to improve our mind, our concentration, our mental fitness, our mental focus, our acuity. They have to be combined. You can't have one without the other. That's my initial thoughts, Don. You know, again, I've really embraced I was thinking about this morning after my run. It was, am I an endurance athlete? Well, I've done 2 marathons. I don't know if that qualifies me as an endurance athlete, or is just someone who's done a couple of marathons. I don't know. I mean, to me, it's 6 1/2 dozen the other. But I've enjoyed being able to do these longer distances, and the mental aspect that goes into it is really important to me.
Well, it sounds like, you know, it was meant to be in a way as an offset to where someone is, you know, and, you know, everything I've read about fitness and primarily exercise is it has the same capacity as some of the strongest pain relievers and killers,
Yeah.
you know, to provide dopamine and all kinds of endorphins and changes your chemical balance. And, what you eat changes your chemical balance, right? That old saying is you are what you eat. Well, is that what you want to be? What's in front of you on this plate? Is this
Yeah.
how you're going to furnish your body with nutrition? So I think, fitness applies, like we had talked about earlier, to mental fitness, physical fitness, emotional fitness, social fitness. I mean,
Yeah.
there's so many things that you have behaviors, and every set of behaviors you could rate as far as how fit are you,
Yeah.
how strong are you. There's people who are incredibly strong physically, but in other ways can hardly get out the door.
Yeah.
And there's other people, so it changes with the person, the situation. But I think the biggest element is knowing you can change it, that you're not a victim of whatever was and have to maintain that forever. You know what?
Well, I
Go
think
ahead.
that's a very important point, and I don't want to gloss over that. In my experiences, look, I don't shy about this topic. Was I had lots of little T traumas, I call them, through my life. I had a couple of big T traumas throughout my life. So post traumatic stress, pre, during, and post military experiences, not uncommon amongst many of us in the forces, and that's fine. It's how we engage and deal with it. And I did not deal with it very well. I kept going back to, well, this happened to me, so I'm broken. This happened to me, so I'm not good enough. This happened to me. Well, 2020, everybody looks at 2020, the COVID pandemic, and the doom and gloom. And for me, it was an opportunity to really go internally with my therapist, with my old shipmate who helped me with my diet, and with a friend of mine who got me into running again and helped not coach me particularly, but help me stay focused and motivated. And, that's another aspect that goes to the social interaction of fitness and how we can improve our bodies and minds through social interaction. That's, we can continue that chat too. But for me, it was getting over the traumas, at least accepting them and then telling myself, look, they don't define who you are. It's in the past. Look to what you can do today and in the future. Those are the important pieces.
Well, having someone to help you, engaging someone to help you can only help you. At least give you ideas, give you thoughts, give you new viewpoints, because I think so many people are locked in their own cage.
Yeah.
And they surround themselves by too much of themselves and really need to dilute that, or just too much for one to deal with if that's all there is, because it tends to be the same loop that keeps looping, and no matter how much you try to get away from it, it somehow finds you. So anyways, let's go right to our wonderful people here. Carl Dakin, who's also in our initial collaboration group with Dave and Kelly and Harvey and Con, just a great group. Welcome. Carl did his 2 miles on the stair stepper today. Good for you. You can never do too much for yourself. If anything, you end up doing too little for yourself.
Yeah.
So when the opportunity comes, because no one's going to tell you, hey, Dave, here's 2 tickets, take a vacation, right? Unless you buy those tickets and plan it, it'll never happen until you take the time to eat the way you want and to sleep the way you want and to exercise the way you want. Will you start creating more of a support and tailwind to it? I know this is Carrie. What did the coffee say to the tiramisu when getting out of bed? Let's rise and grind. Okay, I always give Carrie a joke. Good morning, y'all listening in. Kelly's here. And, I always talk about Kelly and how important she's been to this show and what a great show she has with Christy Howard. Awesome journey. So every time I get a chance, not to plug, but to really honestly share. And I think when you've got good to share, whether it's information or whatever, it's a disservice not to,
Yeah.
especially if you know the value that it could bring to just one person. And if nothing else, it opens doors to open doors, right? So going on.
I really encourage anybody to listen to Kelly and Christy's show. I've been a participant on it. I've listened to several of the others on there, and just phenomenal people that you guys get on these shows and sharing wonderful opportunities to learn new perspectives.
Well, and then we're having you on with Greg Martin
Yeah.
in January, and Kelly's going to be on that one. So it's really a way of combining forces at times and really getting the best out of everybody at one time and creating value. Christine's here. Just curious, there was a closed captioning option for a link. Forgot my headphones. No, that's only if you do an event in advance, you can have that. Or if you're on StreamYard. And StreamYard was a little undependable, but yeah, it helps to have earphones. Okay. Carrie's working on the affirmation through a day with my mind, also working with how my past doesn't rule me as well. I've had lots of people help, and that has been wonderful. Well, thank you for sharing that, Carrie, because you never know what someone's going through or has gone through. You're always assuming the world is a mirror of your thoughts and beliefs and judgments. And I think a reservation of all that saves everybody a lot of time and opportunity to make a mistake and not even know it. Categorize somebody in a situation or greet somebody in a way that you never knew, as opposed to just being curious, asking questions, and really not even asking questions, just where is someone at? Just saying, how you doing, right? And that's no judgment. And somebody might say, great, thanks for asking. Somebody say, well, it's not very nice. And at least you know right off the bat what's in front of you and how you can impact it in whatever way. Debbie's here. Haven't seen Debbie in a while. I know Debbie sent some pictures. She's been on some cruises with her husband, and one was a butterfly theatrical, which was just interesting, unless it was meant just for butterfly people, how Debbie aligned with it, because Debbie's heavily involved with the butterfly migration to Mexico every year and is leading things and really getting in front of it. Harvey's here. Harvey's one of the best, if not the best, on LinkedIn. Harvey's show, I can't not mention it, the franchise show. So proud of the show. So proud of Harvey for developing that show and really helping other people now do what Harvey's learned to do so well. And actually, always between number 1 and number 2 as far as events on LinkedIn. Hello, everyone. Fitness was a great word to discuss. Fitness and being healthy are so important for both body and mind. I've always found fitness goals give me really positive future thoughts, and exercise releases happy chemicals. You know, I find that exercise, I do it every day. I've been doing 10,000 steps for 25 years. I might have missed a day, you know, and it really kind of brings you back to yourself. It balances things. I mean, you think one way when you left and you're thinking a different way, and it lets things kind of settle, kind of run through easily. And most people don't do it because they don't have time to do it. But what do they have time for that they're doing instead of it? And, you know, I found that you can either build somebody else's dream or build your own. And everything you do either takes you further from your goal or to your goal, right? Sit down and eat a cheesecake today. See how that's going to help you out in the future. But I mean, it'll taste probably really good. And, you know, everybody deserves a little, luxury here and there. But the point is how do you want to be in the future?
Yeah.
I mean, that's the key. Forget about where you've been and forget about who you are. If you were just to go into a dealership and pick out your vehicle that's going to take you for the next 10 or 15 years, what would it look like? And what would the price tag be?
Yeah.
Right? What are you going to have to do? So, Dave, what do you say to all that?
Well, I guess there's a lot to unpack there. I've got three points that come to mind. One, your last one. I remember there's a video of I can never remember this guy's name, the multi-billionaire friend of Bill Gates who lives in the same house he did.
Warren, yeah.
Warren Buffett. Yeah. Well, his point was to a bunch of college kids was, if I could give you a car right now, what car would you want? But you can only have it for the rest of your life. You can have no other car. Well, the analogy there is we only have one body for the rest of our lives. Let's take care of it as if you would one car for the rest of your life, one home for the rest of your life. Take care of it. Two, you brought up endorphins and the chemicals that are released, and there are 2 points on that. One is there's a video I always love listening to, and I just keep going back to, is there's proof now that as we contract our muscles, every time you contract a muscle, like I am right now, or if I'm working and running 26.2 miles, either way, my body is releasing what are known as hope molecules. And it's not endorphins. I'm not sure exactly what chemical it is, but they call them hope molecules that go straight to the brain and increase our happiness. So there is a direct physiological connection between fitness, exercise, moving the body to work and heal the mind. The second one was, there's a book I listen to a couple times a year called Move the Body, Heal the Mind. And in it, Dr. Jen Heiss reveals that there's, everybody thinks of endorphins as the main high, that runner's high that we get, that we talked about since I think the 70s, early 80s. But there's another chemical that's released that most people associate with taking a toke, as she puts it, and it's cannabinoids. The body will release natural cannabinoids to give us a high. So not just endorphins, but a high. There's again, physiological connection between our body moving and our mental state. There's no way to get around it. And the third point that I think is very important, and to Carrie's comment, he's trying to, they're trying to feed the mind with positive affirmations. Well, just like our diet feeds our body and our gut, and the gut-brain connection, again, very connected, what we're feeding our mind and telling ourselves, positive or negative things, those will come to fruition. If I'm always negative, negative things will come. If I'm always positive and affirming what I'm going to get, things will come. So, fitness, yes, it's about moving the body, but and we mentioned earlier several times, feeding ourselves properly to ensure the machine functions. I wouldn't go out to my car right now and put diesel fuel in it when it runs on unleaded gas. Okay, well, why would I put crap, pardon my language, into my body regularly? Let me be clear, because I like a cheesecake too, every so often. But we need to make sure that we're feeding the right fuel to maintain. And to me, there's physical body and fitness, there's mental fitness, and then there's brain health. Doing those things that make sure that our brain functions, not just our gut and our muscles, but the brain needs to be fed properly too. So making sure you're taking in the right vegetables, meats, proteins, carbs, fats. These things help fuel the brain, to fuel the body, and then the mind is an offshoot of the brain, and how it's an individual piece, if you will. Everybody has a brain, everybody has a body, and they're all unique. The brain is something the mind is something I cannot tangibly touch on Don Cohen or Dave Snell. So I see them as three separate entities that we need to fuel properly to ensure maximum output.
Okay, I think that makes perfect sense. And, it just shows that you have to go deeper than the surface or conventional wisdom to really get the truth. I think, to your point, what can be so powerful is your ability to know you can control certain things certain ways. You
Yeah.
know, there was times, like I mentioned before, when I had my company and there was a lot always going on. It was big and it was dynamic. And I I just had to really work on conditioning myself that when I got into work, I was everything I needed to be. It's
Yeah.
a kind of like a performer, right? You got to show up, and you got to show up to inspire, motivate, innovate. And many times I was driving to work and I said, I'm not right. And I'd see a park and I'd pull off and I just walk until I got tired of walking,
Yeah.
until I was right. And I got back in the car and I showed up in a much better position. So knowing how you look, how you feel, and how you project is like, okay, back it up. You wouldn't leave your house with your shirt unbuttoned, right?
Right.
So it's a matter of preparing. And the other good thing about it, you're doing it for others, and you'll do more for others than you would for yourself, right? If you're sitting at home and your shirt's unbuttoned, you don't care. No one's there with you. It doesn't matter. But if you're going to have company, right, or you're expecting to, share something worthwhile, you're going to look as good as you can for the occasion, for the people. And I think when you look at yourself, you got to ask yourself, is this sustainable? Right? Get beyond the cosmetic or the appearance. Can I live doing this every day for the next 4 years and live well? Right? And that's when people have to look at habits, because some people do some great good habits, and then they meet them with some bad habits, right? And
Yeah.
either wash them out or make them not as valuable. So it's balance, and I think that's where support comes in. That's where group support comes in, because when everybody's dealing with the same thing, it doesn't seem that difficult. You know,
Yeah.
it's only when you're alone think you're the only person that's. Go ahead, Dave,
Oh,
speak.
no, I was just agreeing with you. I do have some thoughts, but I didn't want to interrupt. I apologize. Um,
No, that's fine. Or
okay.
go ahead.
Yeah, I was just thinking, we've said several times, community, connection, people, social network. Let's just think about last week during our biweekly calls on LinkedIn topics. Look, I didn't have anything to say last week. I'd had a very tough week. I had memory of a friend I'd lost. I had some business stuff that wasn't going the way I wanted it. I was just, I was I won't say depressed because I've been very depressed, but I was not in my normal state, despite running, despite meditating. But when we got on that call and I said, hey guys, I've had a tough week. I'm not really prepared to bring anything to the table today. Harvey jumped in with, hey, if you ever need to talk, just give me a call. I don't even know him beyond here, in a couple of calls. And having those connections and knowing that you have a network of support to come back to you to make sure that you are solid is very important. And it helps keep us motivated to keep moving forward. I would not have finished my first marathon without my buddy helping me, despite not realizing how much pain he was in with a tumor, a cancerous tumor, and because he was always behind me, it's just, hey, keep going, keep going. And then when I finally turned around and looked at him, I saw how much pain he was in. I was like, wow, this guy really went all out. Something that was important to him was running that race, but also seeing me finish it. And that network and the community and the feeling of together really can compound on that fitness. And I want to do something to help others, but I can't help others if my cup is half empty. I can't help others if I'm physically drained because I didn't eat right, sleep right, work out, do those things that I need to do to be physically present for somebody else.
Well, with that said, having understanding, having insight, having awareness, being able to match up with something, right? When this happened, this usually happens, or this creates this. And that's so when you get directional, where you can moderate or even pivot or decide, hey, I'm putting my hands up, I'm walking away from this until I'm ready for it. You ever see those
Yeah.
weightlifters? They get right up to the weights and they got all this powder and talcum and it's flying. And sometimes they release. I mean, they don't even lift it. They walk away, come back in 30 seconds or whenever they're prepared. It's the
Yeah.
mental toughness that keeps you through. But a lot of times it is like walking up a down escalator. A lot of times it looks like, you're just lucky to hold the line, let alone get on top of it. But that's the one day, when you're on a trail and you encounter mud, it's going to be slower going than when it's dry. But you understand that and you look at that as part of the bigger picture instead of the picture. Too many people get lost in the moment and freak out. Some people don't get lost in the moment enough and freak out, right? Because they're busy with the past, worried about the future. The present is just like a pause. So,
Yeah.
it's the game is always between you and yourself, and it's always going to be that way. You're going to be the determining factor on the judgment you provide yourself, the sentence you give yourself, and the duration you want to serve that time for whatever reason that you can justify is wasting the future because of something you can't fix in the past. I mean, it's like a
Yeah.
double whammy. Debbie, well, Beverly's here. Beverly's our Tuesday person every Tuesday. Does a remarkable performance and appearance of value and really sincere lessons and ways that people can improve. And another thing, Dave, Beverly, Kelly, Harvey, I can go on and on and on. They're here to help, and they're here to help others. And it means a lot for those people who are working with to be successful, right? Because that's the whole key of learning something is sharing it and letting other people get the benefit of your lesson or the sacrifice or investment you had to make that you don't want them to go through, right? If you can stop somebody from going through something and show them what was ahead of them and now what they could be thinking or doing, and it's peer to peer because institutions and governments are just too overwhelmed to be like personalized and one on one. But to Dave's point, his friend was there, right? That's peer to peer. That's somebody that you couldn't dial up and get a person to show up, for you for the race and egg you on and motivate you. And, when people do a lot for you, you feel an obligation, if you have some honor, to do something for them. And it could be just showing them you are worth what they gave you, right? You don't have to give them back anything. You just got to appreciate it and honor it. Beverly Glazer says that's the truth. We all need that self-care to be our best every day. And sometimes life kicks in and it gives us an unexpected shot. So true. And I found situations where you need everything about you that you have, right? Because things only in time, between gravity and everything else pulls you away from things as you're getting older. And it's sometimes you got to let go of stuff that maybe you had room for, or maybe you can accommodate. But when the going gets too tough, first of all, the tough get going, but also they make good quality decisions that I don't need to carry this anymore. I can't. I mean, I only got so much room and I only got so much stuff. Something got to give. And you bless it for the time it was there. Dennis says, agree, be consistent and show up, not show off. Yeah. And, the whole thing is let's get real. Let's get honest with each other and ourselves. It is what it is. What are you going to do with it is the question. And how are you going to do it? And how are you going to be after you do those? I mean, all you got to do is hit the fast forward button. Where is this leading? What am I going towards? And if it's that's where I want to go, hey, speed it up. And if it's not, hey, take a rest spot, sit down, or get some help. Bring in some
Yeah.
experts. So we've got Harvey. Harvey's got a good one here. Thank you, Dave. That support is always there, and you're right. It's the support of others that keeps us fit. I've done several obstacle courses. They're always about helping other people, not finishing first. They were never a race, but a challenge that can only be overcome together. Also, they gave you a beer when you crossed the finish line. And leave it to heart between coffee. Go ahead, Dave.
You know, on Harvey's point, I mean, I love a good pint. Don't get me wrong. I think it's to our point of fueling ourselves. It's ironic because when I was in the Navy and even after I was just dealing with these traumas, I would drink. I realized just a month ago I hadn't had a drink in 4 months now, and I feel great. That's not to say I'm opposed to it, but I just haven't sought it out. And I know that when I go to Harvey, I'll actually be in the UK in February for a football match. I know my uncle is going to want to have a pint and a shot. So I'm sure I'll have a couple in February. But until then, I just have no desire to have a pint. And I see the physical benefits of, tempering my alcohol intake.
Well, isn't that so important with everything is balance? Moderation is so important. I mean, a little bit of anything, I can't say won't hurt depending on what that anything is, but relative to overuse, over dependency of it, things of that nature. And at the same time, everybody's different. I know there's people 95 have a shot of bourbon every night.
Yeah.
And sometimes even a cigarette if they're in the mood, but whatever got them to where they are still works for them, I guess. And there is something to quality of life, right?
Yeah.
There is something to enjoyment. If you see a lot of people, sometimes their only thing they look forward to is their meals, right? Is a dessert that someone might bring, and that's satisfying. Is it healthy? At a certain point, who knows what's healthy? If you think it is, it usually is. If you think it isn't, it usually isn't, because there's a huge research into placebo effect,
Right.
and basically it's just, here's a medicine, here's a sugar pill, it looks like the medicine. And if everybody thinks it's the same, they'll start to get the benefit from it to an extent. What's interesting about it is every year the placebo effect goes up higher and no one understands it. So it's your belief in something working that helps it work, and it's your disbelief. If you're a cynic and a skeptic and you go out of your way to prove it wrong by being that example. Dave, what's your thoughts?
I think as you were talking, it hits really home is that, when I look at my 4M methodology is, movement, mind, meditation, and meaning. Well, the mind, I've got to have a strong mind. Meditation, I've got to have a calm mind. And meaning, I've got to have a purpose. I have to have a reason that I'm doing it. And I don't want to go into my meaning with a negative outcome. So the more positives I can throw at, okay, I want this positive outcome. I'm going to calm my mind when I'm in struggle. I'm going to make sure that the traumas and the things in the past aren't going to rear their ugly head in the present, or the things in the future I'm afraid of, I don't want to happen. I'm just going to calm myself. It's that positive mindset of this pill will work. This fitness will work. This goal will happen. Whatever it is, the mindset really does matter going in. If, like you said, if you have a negative outset of things aren't going to work, or I look for the net negatives or the nitnoid negatives, you're never going to have that positive effect that the placebo would have. And, you just have to, when I run longer distances, I have to think, okay, wow, 5 years ago, this was an impossibility. Now, my trainer, I've been seeing a trainer for 6 years almost, and she reminds me often that when I first met her, I told her running was off the table. I was never going to be able to run again. 3 years in, I started running again. 2 years after that, I ran my first marathon. Now I've run my second. I'm planning on 3 next year. Hey, something is definitely positive, has changed. Fitness has changed my mindset, my mind, my mental outlook, my perspective. And the world is coming positive on these physical goals that I thought were impossible 6 years ago. So how we train our mind for positive outcomes, for positive, with positive inputs for positive outcomes is very important. And I think we lost that for a while with so much negativity coming into our brains and our minds through social networking, which sounds positive, but all we see are these negative things in the news and especially through the pandemic and a little bit beyond, or in the news today with what's going on in the world. We just have to learn to filter that out. For me, it's been meditation. Meditation, just breathing a few calm breaths, focused on the breath, has been able to take me away from things going on around me. Okay, it's not the Buddhist monk who can silence his mind, so to speak, and ignore everything going on around him. But I learned to focus on something other than these negative things around me, and that has had a positive swing in my life to take me to where I am today.
Well, that's fascinating. And, reminds me, I was just, again, going through social media and saw Tony Robbins on a short video. And he said there's 3 things that you really need to be happy in life. I don't even know what the third one was, but the first 2 was what you can control and what you can't.
Yeah.
People who focus on things they have no control over can't really be happy because they're a victim, they're overwhelmed, or they can't see the light. The other one is people who focus on the future and not the past, right? So if your viewpoint is forward and what's in front of you, and you throw away the rear view mirror, there's a saying, don't look back unless you want to go back.
Right.
And, so if you can just focus on where you're going, where you want to go, and what you can do to get there, you're in a much better position to be successful. So it's really, you wouldn't put it in drive and reverse at the same time,
Right.
and you wouldn't put in reverse to go forward at any time. So it's really being sensible with yourself, because it is the emotional, it is the personal, it is the mental. Whatever happened physically or however happened, you survived it. You're here, right? You got on the other side. Now, did you get on the other side of being what you were before it? And now it changed. But if it changes one way, it can change another way, right? So that's the beauty of change. It's only when you decide to move forward with it and treat yourself with some kindness. I mean, if somebody was on their knees and they couldn't think of tomorrow, right? How would you address them? Well, that's you sometimes.
Yep.
Right? How kind are you when you know where you are? And instead of saying, hey, don't worry about any, that's usually what you do. Someone has a hard time. Hey, just get a good meal in you, get some sleep tonight. Don't worry about it. Tomorrow will come soon enough. And it's really pushing yourself through that and giving you reasons, and look for reasons. Look for the good things in your life. It wasn't all or nothing, right? So I think it's perspective. Harvey says Billy Ocean's song. The one I remember was Caribbean Queen that he did.
He did when the going gets tough, the tough get going for.
Oh yeah, that was in that movie with
Jewel of the Nile too.
Yeah, and there was Michael Douglas. Actually, it was Kathleen Turner too. It was that horrible marriage movie.
Danny DeVito.
Yeah, Danny DeVito was a little guy with the saxophone. So yeah, great to bring that up, Harvey. Tuck says, that's amazing, Dave. Always feel better when I do the same. Great advice. And yes, at Don Balance and moderation is spot on, Dave Snell. Let me know the date you will be in the UK. I'll see if I'm about and we can meet up. You know, Harvey will go anywhere, do anything. That's what I love about Harvey is in the beginning, he squeezed every show he could in that he was on. And half of the time he was in bus stations or hotel rooms or under an underpass. And, you know, it's those kind of people that are just whatever it takes people who sincerely engage in that. It's not like, yeah, if you're in town, I'll see you if it works out or, you know, and I think there is something to relationship health because you can do everything on your own. You can change your diet. No one's going to stop you tomorrow. You can increase your exercise. No one's going to say, oh, you ran too much today. You know, you can get a little more sleep. You can have a hobby. But where the challenge is other people won't change with you or as you. You know, I mean, I take that example. Me and my wife went on Weight Watchers 20 years ago, and we lost 40 pounds each within a week of each other. I lost it in 20 weeks. She lost in 20 because we were watching each other.
Yeah.
You know, but I can tell you one thing: if she didn't do it, and she was eating a big pepperoni pizza in front of me and waving it around and telling me, "How could you keep eating, you know, these greens and these vegetables or whatever?" It would have been very difficult. And even if one succeeded, there would have been resentment, right? What are you tripping me up for? What are you tempting me? You know? And I think that's where you got to change your circle of influence. If you weren't drinking and you had nothing but drinking buddies, and every time I went around them, you were exposed to it, that would make it very difficult either to stay with them or to change for them. And I think at the end of the day, only you know what you need, when you need it, and how you need it. And, you know, if people really respect you and care about you, they'll be considerate of that. You know, you would never invite somebody over who's having a hard time with alcohol and is trying to quit and then throw booze all over the place and expect that person. So I think there's kindness, consideration that you give yourself and you give others. But thank you for saying that. Beverly comes back with, I've traveled around London listening to both of you and Harvey's show. Well, that's great. Beverly's up there in Montreal. So great to be able to travel now, unlike before, and get to see people. And, you know, every time I've met somebody, which hasn't been that often, in person from LinkedIn, it was always more special.
Yeah.
Because you got to really realize their presence and not have to depend on electronics or technology. And I think that's another thing that people are missing is the time they used to have with family, right? You'd sit around and play cards, you know, you'd watch a TV show together as a family. And now it's like you can't go out to dinner without 6 tablets coming out and 4 cell phones. And it's like, why don't we just take a carry out? You know, why don't we just eat in the car? What was the whole point? So Dave, I know you've seen a lot of changes and, you know, also going from military to civilian, you know, is a transition in itself. You know, how do you see people leveraging what we're doing or technology to improve their situation, not to damage it?
You know, it's funny because we always bring up military and technology, and it's, you know, military grade. It's funny because the military is actually, when you think military grade, or it's not always the high tech stuff. Because I remember when I retired from the Navy, I went to a consulting firm. They're like, "Hey, Dave, yeah, I sent you this note and this program on an app on your phone, and make sure you're logging in and doing these things." And I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. I've never used these apps. I'm like, "Oh, you're an IT kind of guy, cyber guy." I'm like, I'm so far behind because all my stuff was classified. I couldn't do it on my phone. I didn't understand these processes that they were going through and the use of technology, the ways they were doing it. So it was really a little bit of a steep learning curve for me when I first retired. And the other thing from that regard, when it comes to fitness is, I have my Garmin now. When I was in the military, I couldn't wear my Garmin, or at the time, I think I was wearing a Fitbit when I wasn't, because in the office, it has Bluetooth. I can't bring any electronics into my office. It was very frustrating when I went back to, a couple of years ago, I went back to be a contractor, where I went back into the classified realm and can't bring that Fitbit or Garmin in. So I kind of saw a decrease in my fitness level, and I saw my my eating went back down to crap a little bit. So my weight has come back on, not completely, but partially from where I was 4 years ago. So I've seen a lot of changes in the way people are addressing these things, and I think the fact that I bring the Garmin up or the phone up on purpose because these are tools that we can use to help ensure that we stay on track. I think somebody mentioned earlier, I think it was Debbie, how do you stay consistent? Well, using technology, we can set up, alerts, go for a run. Hey, every 45 minutes, get up from your desk, set an alarm, and just walk out in the hallway, go outside for 5 minutes, then come back to your desk. These things, help us improve our mental and physical fitness because they can take us away from the minutia and the direction that we're focused on. How often do we get stuck at our desk and looking at a computer screen, writing some project out or PowerPoint slides, and then we go, oh my gosh, it's been 2 hours or it's been an hour. Well, the body needs to move every 30 to 45 minutes. We start to see, blood pooling, if you will. I don't want to make it sound disgusting, but we need the legs to be moving to keep stretched, to get the blood out of our legs, open up our minds, take a break from directed minutia focus to say, okay, I'm going to go back and I'm going to take in some sunlight. I'm going to talk to somebody else. That's how I think technology can help us. Your 10,000 steps, for example, Don, how do you track that? You got some sort of pedometer, I'm sure, whether it's,
watch.
Yeah, exactly. So, the old school, we had those little pedometers we put on our hip and, count, with an analog counter. Now we've got these great technical uses or technology to use to find how many steps, how far we've gone, what our heart rate is, what our stress levels are. I mean, this one, I'm not sure how accurate it is, but tells me what my oxygen levels are in my blood, percentage of oxygen. And I use these things every day to say, okay, hey, I didn't work out as hard today, so my fitness level decreased, but I know I've got a race coming up. I need to start ramping up a little bit over time instead of trying to do I'll just stay a little low and then I'm going to jump up to 26 miles. No, I can plan out building up my fitness again. And this is how I see technology really helping me out and some other folks that I work with and work out with as well. But I'd also like to point out to your point earlier was, whether you're in reverse or in drive, there's the old adage of the rear view mirror is small for a reason and the windshield is big because that's the direction you're going. You're not going back there. That's in the mirror, in the small mirror on purpose.
That's so true.
Yeah, I go back to my therapist asked me to read a book called The Way of the Peaceful Warrior by Dan Millman. And I've listened to it countless times now. But there's one point in that book that really has grounded me. And even when I was running the second marathon here, it was really not a positive experience in the end because it just was hotter. I wasn't as well hydrated or fueled as I should have been. And it goes to the concept of I can only worry about right here, right now.
Mm-hmm.
I can't worry about the past. I can't worry about the future. Where is Dave Snell right now? I am here. What time is it? It is now. And that now is fleeting. You know, it only lasts for half a second, and then it's a new now, and then it's a new now, and then it's a new now. So you have to just realize that, hey, that stuff in the rearview mirror, it's not here. It's not now. It's not right here where I am. So why am I going to worry about it? The things in the future haven't even happened yet.
Well, that's so true and so valid. And a lot of points you bring up is about awareness. How do you deal with something you don't know what it is?
Yeah.
You know, you can't, I mean, if someone put you in a car and took away the speedometer, within a certain point, you would know I'm going 40 or 50, but you wouldn't know within 10, right? You could be going 40 and going 50 easily or whatever. Having an idea of, okay, well, I'm used to doing 10,000 steps. Now you have a comparison. In a way, it's a friendly competition. It's like, well, hey, if I only got 800 more to do to get to 10,000, I'll do them.
Yeah.
If I don't know I've done them or haven't done them, I probably won't. And then once you get lazy in a little place, you start getting lazier and it spreads in other places. Well, if that doesn't matter, then what does that matter? And pretty soon nothing matters.
Yeah.
Right. And all of a sudden you're back to, wow, how did I get here? And I think the other element is pride. People are proud that, hey, I can do better than this. I know I'm capable. You know, my parents or my family didn't raise me like this, or this wasn't how I was brought up. Why am I acting out like this? Why am I not being the person I know I can be or want to be? And again, that's having someone who can say, it's okay, you're okay, it's going to be okay. And what does worrying or fear add value to anything, right?
Yeah.
And to me, I've always been more like, if it's going to happen, let's happen now. I don't like to wait.
Yeah.
Right? If it's got to be whatever it is, let's do it. Let's get it over with. And then I can think about the next thing instead of worrying about what I'm trying to avoid. And a lot of people live lives of avoidance. They're smart enough and strong enough not to get in trouble, but not to get ahead, right? They got a simple routine they do. It seems to work enough to get them through the next day. But are we living desperate lives, you know, as we move? And I think, you know, quality of life means something. And, you know, yesterday's word, I believe it wasn't the day before, was comeback. You know, and when you think of comebacks, you think about Rocky the fighter, you know, or you think about a movie star that was hot for a decade and then fell on hard times, and all of a sudden they got their roll back and they're back on top. But most people don't realize the comeback is the person who just had a stroke and needs to learn how to talk.
Yeah.
That needs to know how to take a walk. Those are heroes. Those are people that are coming back. Those are people who aren't accepting their situation. They're working at it.
You know,
I think, go ahead, Dave, please.
Say, you know, I remember my junior year of high school, I had a tendon caught in my hip bone, my pelvic bone. And I had a doctor tell me at 16 years old, rather, Dave, you will never walk without a limp and you will never run again. And then senior year, I played on a high school soccer team that was state champs and number 2 in the nation. And I sent him a picture, and he was a military doctor. My dad was Navy, so we saw military doctors. Sent him a picture of my soccer team picture. And he said that he was on USS Comfort in the Persian Gulf during his pre-Desert Storm. And he just dropped those files. He's like, holy crap, I can't believe this kid proved me wrong. You know, so what people tell us doesn't always equate to what we have internally. You know, make that comeback, make that effort to prove people wrong and be the better you than you thought you could be.
Well, and I think that's what the magic of life is miracles.
Yeah.
Possibilities, right? You know, if you believe, it'll probably happen if you can stick with it. And I think, to your point, the key word is consistency. right? You can get in a great discipline, but for how long,
Yeah.
right? For 3 or 4 days, anybody could eat anything and be okay, but eat that every day for a month or a year and see how that works out. And I think it's really just telling yourself this is the way it's got to be. And it's like set it, forget it, and just work it. When I was losing 2 pounds a week, I knew every day how many points I was using up. And it was always between burning calories and not consuming calories. And that's how you got ahead of it. If you burn more than you consume, you would win the game. And you know what? A meal's over soon enough. And I realized, and you come up with all these different justifications you never thought of. Everything you're eating, only once you swallow it, you don't know what it was, right? So you could have the most delicious pie for about 8 seconds that's traveling down your tongue, and then it's done. So what difference does it make? And in essence, I looked at it like fuel.
Yeah.
Right? What difference? The gas station you hook up to, it's just the gas that keeps you going until the next time you need it. So I think it's rationalizing. Most cases, it's like, if I don't do this, this is what's going to happen. How many doctors tell you, hey, you're at the borderline here. If you keep pushing it, you're going to end up here. And then here's what we're going to have to do. So even if it's not for the pursuit of pleasure or benefit, if it's the avoidance of worse, and someone says, yeah, I got to give up smoking because they told me if I don't, even though they would have never done it if someone didn't tell them, here's what it takes. But, everybody learns in their own way, in their own time. And some people never learn, which is the tragedy of it. So, Dave, you had lots of time to reflect on your situation, your trials and tribulations. And, what was the continuing motivation to take this to the next level and continue to improve and evolve positively?
Well, I think it comes down to, again, my movement, mind, meditation, and meaning. The meaning that I have that I want to guide the rest of my days, if you will. And I have the card here in front of me on my desk. I see every day, and I want to improve myself for others and show that, in my case, mental health, mental fitness mental illness rather, was not going to define who I am. And the best way that I found to maintain a positive outlook and keep the mental illness darkness away is through I won't say I eat the best. I know that I do eat a lot of crap, but I know that if I don't run, if I don't go to the gym, if I don't do something exercise related, then I'm not going to be the best I can be and show that mental illness is not going to define me. I don't want to be a statistic. I've been to the deep end of the pool in the darkness and almost died. And then I tried to get others to do it through my time in combat. I don't ever want to be there again. And it all comes back down to being an example for my kids to show the resiliency and the ability to be able to come back from that darkness and the nasty things that I've done through my life, and not blame mental illness, but show that it can be overcome, and a life can be well lived, is what drives me.
Well, that's terrific. And I think you put it together in such a quality, comprehensive way, because there are parts of it that are important. It's not just do one thing. And it's continually reviewing and seeing where you can improve or where you need some more space, because you're like a tailor and you fit yourself, right? Sometimes you got to take your pants out if you're eating too much. Sometimes you got to bring it back in. And I think the key is to have an element of fun involved with whatever you do, because you got to have a sense of humor. Some things are just so peculiar, and you can't even figure out how something like this could happen except laugh at it.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, how did I ever get lucky enough to end up with whatever you want to fill in that blank. And, you know, the thing is, there's a saying, you're never given more than you can handle. The saying is, don't ask for a lighter load, ask for broader shoulders,
Yeah.
And continue to build strength, even if you don't have to have it. There's something about having a reserve, a reserve of energy, a reserve of funds, a reserve of something, just knowing it's there. It's like having a spare tire in your car. How many times do you ever change your tire? Not often.
Right.
But you feel a lot better knowing that there's something there that can get you back on the road. And I think that's the key. The road ultimately ends for everyone.
Yep.
The question is, how do you transverse that road? And how do you do it in a way that inspires the people around you to make your time here, that much more worthwhile? Is how do you make the log pile bigger and you find it everywhere you go with who you're with? And I think once you get into that, you really find the law of abundance, because the more you can help other people, the more you're going to help yourself. And you're helping yourself by learning through them, with them, by them. And all of a sudden, confidence builds, right? If you're with a really tight group who are really dynamic and quality, you always go to sleep thinking, hey, if I don't know it, Jim knows it for sure. And if Jim doesn't know it, Dave can find it out. So between all of us, nothing is ever going to really get by us. And I think that's where people can be powerful, because some people are just great in a position.
Right.
They're a position player. If you just work them in that position, they'll turn out great for you. And if you don't, well, you're working with them for a while longer. But with that said, it's top of hour. I can't thank Dave enough. You're just unbelievable today as far as being able to share some real valuable experiences, insights, tips. So last words to the audience, Dave, and we'll let everybody get about their business.
No, I don't want to hold anybody up. I've always appreciated, the comments and being on here, and I thank you very much.
Well, that's great. Thank you very much. Come back in 23 hours, and Kelly will be here tomorrow. Kelly's here every Thursday, and we'll probably be here Friday too. So thank you, and we'll talk some more.